The 2023 NBA season is fastly approaching, and the majority of NBA fans are pumped to see their squad take the court. And looking across the NBA landscape, really every franchise has at least one player who's your cornerstone and the future of your team. And in today's video, we're looking at 4 of those players who I personally believe are going to have massive leaps and quite literally scare the NBA. And the first player I do want to look at is indeed RJ Barrett.
With the 3rd pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the New York Knicks select RJ Barrett from Toronto and Duke University.
So looking at RJ back in 2019, he was a part of the illustrious draft that featured Zion Williamson, John Morant, Darius Garland, as well as Tyler Hero. And going into his 4th season so far, he's had a decent NBA career, as last year for the first time, he averaged 20 points per game at the ripe age of 21. And even while playing in a big market for the Knicks, I think most NBA fans are overlooking and underrating RJ's potential going into his 4th season. As looking back at last year, his post-All-Star break numbers were simply phenomenal, averaging 24.5 points per game, that was 20th in the NBA, first on his team, 6.2 boards, 3.8 assists, he had 5 30-point games, and scored 46 versus the Heat. Those post-All-Star break numbers for RJ were no coincidence, as the Knicks finally gave him the keys and told Julius Randle, "You're taking a back seat."
Oh, I forgot. You're broken. I don't want to play with you anymore.
And as always for the New York Knicks, they were in the headlines and were a big part of the Mitchell sweepstakes. And unlike many NBA fans, I think the Knicks not going all in on Mitchell was actually smart, as Utah's trade proposal was asking for way too much and essentially would gut the Knicks roster for one all-star player. And I think having RJ under contract at only 21 years old, you have to see the potential this year as the number 1 option on a fully healthy Knicks team. As last year for RJ, his 2 point guards were Kemba Walker as well as Derrick Rose. Those 2 guys played a combined 64 games. So replace that production or lack thereof with Jalen Brunson, I think RJ this year is due for a breakout and a downright scary season. And finally in his 4th year, he'll show a lot of NBA fans why he was the 3rd pick in the 2019 draft. Now looking on our next player, we have Luka Doncic, or should I say, skinny Luka, as Luka in the offseason has trimmed down and has finally hit the gym and is taking the offseason seriously. And it is kind of scary to see Luka Doncic in this good a shape, as last year in average shape, he led his team to Western Conference Finals and had an epic run. Now, even with that being said, looking at Luka's overall career, basically every single year, he's come in out of shape, or he's played himself into shape during this season. Looking at last year, the first 25 games, he still was very good, but for Luka's standards, he wasn't phenomenal, averaging 24.8 points on 44, 32, and 72 splits. Once again, for the average NBA player, that's fantastic numbers, but for Luka Doncic, it's below par. And looking at how Luka ended the year, the last 25 games, it was a complete 180, averaging 32 points on 47, 40, and 76 splits. It's really self-evident Luka Doncic played himself into shape and by the end of the year was in peak conditioning. If you're telling me Luka Doncic for a full 82-game season is going to be in shape and healthy and conditioned, the sky's the limit next year. I think it's really realistic he could average 30 points and win MVP. Looking at someone like Nikola Jokic, he had a similar path in his career, as early on he would come in out of shape and use the beginning of the season to play himself into shape. And I don't think it's a coincidence when Jokic took conditioning seriously, he won back-to-back MVPs. For Luka next year, he is by far my MVP favorite, as once again, he's conditioned, he's healthy, and with Brunson gone, he's going to have the ball 24/7. Now, staying in the Western Conference, next up, we have De'Aaron Fox, one of the most slept-on point guards in the entire NBA. And for De'Aaron, he's already played 5 years in the NBA, and not once has made the playoffs or even the play-in tournament.
Oh no! We suck again!
And every year of his career minus last year, his scoring efficiency went up and improved. And I think the big problem for De'Aaron last year, individually, was playing alongside Tyrese Halliburton, a great young point guard. I'm not going to dismiss Halliburton, I think he has great potential, but looking at Fox, I've always thought he's the much better overall player in the moment and for the future. And after that trade, getting Sabonis, I thought Fox was unlocked and his full potential was finally on display. As after that trade, he averaged 28.9 points per game, 6.8 assists, 4.3 boards on 50, 38, and 77 splits. It was only a 16-game sample size, but in that stretch, he had 6 30-point games and only scored under 25 in 2 games. And the Kings organization for years has been clowned, and rightfully so. But for the first time in over 20 years, this team finally looks competent and is a decent roster that could make the playoffs. As looking at their overall roster, it's pretty solid even for the Western Conference. Having Fox, Sabonis, Harrison Barnes, Kevin Huerter, Rashawn Holmes, Malik Monk, Keegan Murray, Davion Mitchell, even Terrence Davis. This Kings team realistically goes 7 to 9 men deep, and for most of these guys, they're proven and competent NBA players. To all the Kings fans out there, I would be very, very excited looking at this team. They're young, they're hungry, and as always, they're doubted because they're the Kings. Now, looking at our last breakout player who's going to have a scary season, we have Jayson Tatum. And Tatum last year individually checked every box for an all-time great player. He had great playoff success, he was first team All-NBA, he averaged nearly 27 points, and his two-way game was on point. The only big critique I would have was his play in the NBA Finals, which he was killed for, rightfully so. Now, being a massive Tatum fan, in his defense, he's only 23 years old, and that playoff run played nearly 1,000 minutes. And one of the big debates in the NBA, as well as with Celtics fans, is Jaylen Brown versus Jayson Tatum. In my personal view, I've always thought Tatum is the better overall player in the moment and for the future, due to his great scoring as well as playmaking skills. And speaking of those playmaking in the playoffs, Tatum really was the point forward, averaging 6.2 assists and leading the playoffs in total assists. And while those numbers are great, watching the actual games, Tatum, unlike years past, could beat teams in a variety of ways. He could score 27, but also dish out 8 assists. And most impressive, he could beat zones, man defense, double teams, traps, with the pass instead of the dribble. And I want to remind you guys really quickly, looking at Tatum in last year's playoffs, in the first round, he outplayed Kevin Durant. In the second round in Game 6, facing elimination, had 46 points. In the conference finals, outplayed Jimmy and beat him on his home court in a deciding Game 7. Going into 2023, Boston's team, they're retooled, they added Brogdon, and above all else, they have experience and they're battle tested. I'm not going to jinx it, but Boston this year should be the favorite to make the finals and win the championship. I know it's lofty expectations, but after last year's finals, Tatum is going to come back with a vengeance in 2023. Now, that was our last NBA player, and that is the end of the video. As always, thank you guys for watching, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time.